Now I'm looking at myself in this camera here. I can see myself. It acts like something of a mirror. Mirrors are useful, not just the literal ones, but the metaphorical ones. They help us see ourselves and sometimes catch ourselves when we're stepping a bit out of line. But you wonder, because you meet some people who you think, what's wrong with your mirror? Is it not working? Does it reflect something wrong? Is it not a reflective surface, but a warping surface? Do some people just not have a mirror? The topic of today's podcast was looking at some of the difficult people, or, we reframe it a little as difficult behavior in the world, and asking questions like, do we know we're doing the wrong thing all the time? And do we feel justified doing it, and why? What are some of the sources of toxic behavior? What drives it? How much of it is ego? How much of it is conscious? How much of it is unchosen? How much of it comes back to nature? Do people choose to be shitheads, or are they just born that way? So, all the really big questions. And we dive into a distinction we call inclusive versus extractive behavior as the two main energy types we approach certainly work and various other types of relationships with. So a very interesting theme, something that's weaved through some of my writing as well. So something very, very interesting to me that I've wanted to unpack and dive into for a long time. Who better than Luke, the eternal sounding board? We'll dive into the episode and see what you think. How are you, Lucas?
Good. Enjoying the weather as we were just discussing.
Okay. Enough torture. Look, we had a great chat a couple of weeks back, so it just got some neurons firing because I'm never not trying to understand difficult people. Well, I don't want to say difficult people, actually. I want to shift the conversation. Is that all right with you?
Fine by me.
Call it difficult behavior, because maybe there is no such thing as a truly difficult person, because maybe a difficult person is just someone who does mainly difficult behavior things.
How would you define, what makes a behavior difficult?
Well, mate, this is why I love this. This is like, it was just because we're getting
just a clarifying question.
We're just getting into the gritty of things. It's like, what is anything? It's a
no.
Because the first thing I thought was it's in the eye of the experiencer. Like if I find someone's behavior difficult, then that constitutes difficult behavior. But then I think about the people who have found me difficult and I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
I go, well, no, you're overreacting. So it's highly relative.
Yeah, I guess.
But it's like anything where there are some clear examples, and I'm thinking about the stuff like manipulation, being overly emotional, antagonizing people. But, at the same time, I think about in particular, like sporting coaches I've had, and being a coach of a amateur team brings out the best in people. Because we can take it away from the workplace for a sec. And I think it's so fascinating to observe workplace organizational type psychology and stuff in amateur teams and committees and all the least serious places. Because if you strip back the actual stakes that are, because when you're in a workplace, it's your survival, it's your living, it's your career, it's quite a serious thing, right? When you're playing, Div 5 at Commonara Parkway with a cricket pitch in the middle every Saturday, and the hill slopes like that, and you see people being serious, then that's just a very interesting thing about human psychology, because you've kind of stripped back the real stakes, really, and you see what's left must just be our psychology playing up. And difficult coaches always think that they're doing it for you, right? I had our coach a couple of years ago. He's a very strong character, much like myself in a sporting capacity. was explaining passionately one night at training, boys, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you. Like, I don't have to be here. And it was why it was funny was we were quite sure that it was for him. We were very sure. We were very sure. Because in my head, soccer's a great example for this, by the way. Because I'm difficult to play. I'm difficult to play with, right? You know that. You've suffered
Yep.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Should we go into... No,
Yeah.
anyway.
We can, mate. Hey, air your grievances, as one YouTube comment put it a couple of years ago. Why do you do these self-soothing therapy sessions, Joe? Well, the answer's in the question. This is some very self-soothing therapy. So, look, if you have something you wish to get off your chest,
Well, when we used to play
this is a safe
soccer
place.
together,
Here we
I would
go.
be on the wing, and
Yep.
I would like to attack. I'd be in the front area of the pitch, trying to
Which you
score
did
a
well.
goal or something
Which
like
you
that.
did well. You did score the goals.
I would say it wasn't in my fittest point in my life. Probably partying a little bit too much, and then dropping back to defend. If it wasn't for Joe pushing me on from an encouragement point of view, I never would have defended. Just like the trauma of like,
that was a
"Get
very corporate.
back!"
That was like I've never been in a corporate performance review, but that's what I reckon it would feel like, because you put that very eloquently and politely. Now tell that story the way you would tell it to like your partner in private without me present.
Oh, I would be like, Joe was so annoying every time. Every time I had to.
Luke, here's what you're not seeing.
Like, Smitty, get back!
Smitty, this is what you don't get. I did that for you.
To be fair, you
wasn't
did
for
that
me.
for the greater good of the
It was
team.
the greater good. And I will see, this is where
But I did need to defend. That's the problem.
You did, but also we mainly needed you to attack, right?
Yes.
So we did need, and you get this in actual professional football. They talk about, well, this player doesn't track back as much, but he's delivering the goals. But they obviously need him to do something, and there's always that tension. And you do need the person who's leaning a bit the other way, and you need the balance. And you need the balance, and you tend to need a bit of some sort of general type, not necessarily always in my style, but you do tend to need it. I remember because I left the team when I got so abusive that I thought, no, I've gone too far. So I even I give myself points for self-awareness, because I checked myself at one point going, no, they just want to chill. And I really like the football part more than the social part. So I think there's a culture misalignment, and I'm going to put myself in the no playing zone. But then they wanted me back. They even paid my rego.
Really?
Yeah.
Were they short on numbers or not?
They were short on determination. So immediately we tap into the value of that. Sometimes I was laughing because I love that phrase, strong character, as the politest possible term for someone who dips into the toxic tank.
Yeah.
He's a strong character. He's a strong character. It's just what he's like. But immediately you see it has some sort of value. And like, look, luckily you and I at least live in a mostly like kind of chill circumstances, right? But obviously there are different parts of the world, different situations, different times in history where there's a lot more actual survival and stuff hitting the fan. And I think you really find, like, you do need a bit of fight sometimes, in some edge cases, genuinely, to like defend yourself. I was listening to a guy not long ago talking about splitting up with a business, like a long-term business partnership. And this guy was talking about how he was a very chill, very laid-back kind of guy, very nice, sweet, I think very religious. But he's talking about splitting up with the business partner, and he's like, it was just this animal in me. He's like, just this animal, and I didn't know where it came from, and it wanted to do like crazy things. And I was like, that's human nature, isn't it? That you might have that in you somewhere. The old what do they call it? Not the lizard brain, but the old evolutionary, the old versions, the old evolution versions stored away there. That animalistic survival kind of reflex. And obviously, we all probably have that, right? But it just kind of will pop up in it'll pop up towards modern things like you know who gets to run the committee, and what font are we choosing for the logo, and who's going to start striker on the weekend, and who's coaching the Dragons after they lose 7 games in a row. So it's the animalistic survival beast inside. Everyone has probably their own version, and it will come out one way or another if it's pushed hard enough. And so the journey to understand and empathize with people we might find difficult. You just think of them as difficult people because it just seems such an active part of their personality. But we had this kind of conversation a few weeks ago, offline, and I think one very sensible thing you said was that there's not really people who are like that all the time in their lives. I mean, right? Everyone's got a bit of everyone's got a little bit, at least a little bit of variety. So it's a question like, why are some people like that so much? Some people are only like that less.
I think it's situational, or I don't know. It's very, very different
We don't have to know.
for different people. But then, yeah, it comes back to that question: what makes someone?
Do you have any thoughts around what the difference in different people might be down to? Does it ever cross your mind? Have you ever had theories or suspicions around it?
But I think potentially a little bit of upbringing, how they've been shaped when they're younger, those like formative experiences,
Yeah,
which would
has
like
to be, right?
but also I don't know if there's a genetic component, or there's a
We
like a
talked about
personality, like just certain people think in certain ways and get flared up or feel differently in certain situations. Yeah, but it's very hard to generalize given.
Well, it's very hard to generalize, but I think what we could do is we could go through and kind of explore many of the things that would be factors. Yeah, because you're not really. It's never going to be one thing. I always think if something's complex, if it was down to one thing, you would have figured it out by now. It'd be very obvious if it was one thing. The fact that it's complex normally does mean it's a bunch of interacting things, right? And so you hit a couple of things there. Upbringing, that's got to be one. In terms of the circumstances of the upbringing, the treatment. I always think, obviously, we all going to form narratives as we go along about what's happening around us, who we are in what's happening around us, right? We're always anchoring ourselves in a story. Like, this is what things are like. This is what I'm like. This is what I have to do. So I was like, you got that going along, and that can always be anything, right? You can't control what program develops in someone's head. So that's got to be a thing. Genetics is an interesting one. I want to come back to that as late as possible because I think that's a big interesting question. Genetics is one. Obviously, situational triggers is another thing. And the context for us wanting to have this conversation today around difficult people, obviously everyone faces difficult, challenging people in all facets, and we must concede that we are those people at some point or another ourselves, briefly. And so I think it's just always fascinating to try and take a second every now and then to try and understand in a genuine way, because mainly it's more in the style of the everyday life to just to judge, defend, move on. Does that make sense when I say that? Judge, defend, move on. Like Luke, he's just like that.
Mm.
Especially
Yeah.
if someone you deal
Yeah.
with every day, you need a way of dealing with a strong character.
Yeah.
Every day, if you got to deal with them every day, you need a way of dealing with it, right? One way or another. And what's interesting is what that might bring out in you, and how that might shift you is also another thing. But yeah, look, circumstance is one thing, and I'm looking at my screen because I obviously played around with these funny-ish multiple choice questions I was going to pose to you at the start. And I did have one here. So this is in the format of a trivia question, right? You don't need to answer, but I'm just going to read it. In terms of choice, at what point does a difficult person become responsible for their behavior? A, the moment they realize other people have feelings, established age 4. B, this one didn't even make sense. Just still trying to understand this one makes sense. The first time they receive constructive feedback and decide it's a personal attack. I don't know. I don't know why that made them responsible for their behavior. C, this is a big one. When they realize being difficult gets them what they want faster.
That's interesting.
C's got potential. D, never. They are a passenger in a vehicle driven by their own ego. D is interesting for me too. But then you go into like, what's ego? But stick with C for now. That's such a big one. In the soccer example, right? You've experienced me yelling on the field. Great example. When you're in a game, and like it's everyone's locked in, and so you're kind of focused in your current action. So your thinking when you're in a game is very unusual, right? Because you're very like one track mind. And so for someone to actually get information to you, often they will need to just shout generally anyway sometimes, right? And so for me, when I'm being that shouting maniac I am in a game, it is like being that way to get what I want faster, what I think that
Yeah.
needs to happen the fastest. And it's one of the situations that might actually even demand it. But it's so funny because to see this doctor, because my family all have terrible stomachs, and it's very hard to get an appointment, very hard. And so my brother Mitchell, first tried to get me an appointment with this doctor. You got a bit of TV on? Oh no, it went away.
It's a plane.
Oh, it's a plane.
Yeah.
Wow. Was it close? Oh, it's gone now. Anyway, this Mitchell, my brother's trying to get me this appointment. Calls, says, she's not taking new patients right now. We put your brother on the wait list or something. And he goes, yeah, that's fine. I go, yeah, that's fine. Like, I'm not dying or anything. I just like to investigate my gut a bit more. And so we leave it there. And then there's this beautiful person in my life. We call her Mum. Hears about this. Goes, no. Call. I'm not with her, but like she finds out about this. She calls. She's been seeing this doctor for years. Obviously, there's some level of entitlement to something, and it's like you got an appointment next week, or you got an appointment in 2 weeks after Mum called. So it went from we'll just go wait, let's see what happens, to oh no, there's actually something in like 2 or 3 weeks time from a pressure call from the head honcho who carries a lot of weight. Big mama bear fighting my battles. And I was like, that's C. when they realize being difficult gets what they want faster. I don't even know how difficult she was, but my brother getting his next appointment yesterday called the same doctor. Said, "Oh, we need to change your appointment. Next thing we have is until August, so it's April now, right? So this is ages away." He goes, "Oh, okay. Well, if something pops up sooner, just let me know." And then they go, "Oh, yeah, look, something's popped up. We can get you in May or something." So he's still played the polite path, and they came through for him anyway. without the, but you see how like the confirmation bias of the I've got to escalate strategy.
Yeah.
It's so prone to confirmation bias, right? And that's which is quite obvious, but that's just a funny, very innocuous example. What's hilarious is that obviously you just go through those cycles and you keep self-selecting the evidence why that's what you need to do. When you're not getting your way, you need to like push more, and that kind of like just compounds, and it become a very it could just become a very unconscious thing. Unconscious in terms of you don't know you're learning that. Not unconscious, not even just unconscious, and you don't know you're doing that, but you're unconscious. I think it can be unconscious that you don't even know you're learning that, and you're taking that away from all the little situations and like little examples and instances of it. So how do you check someone who thinks that way?
I guess it depends on. 'Cause we all need to push a little bit in certain circumstances and not in other circumstances. It's just how is that the default, and is that what you do on a regular basis in like all aspects? Because
Yeah.
yeah,
Some people like, but so that's what I mean. Some people are ready to go. Like
yeah,
my dad can be a strong character when he wants to be, and he's hilarious. How he's like, someone will threaten, blah blah. Well, we'll take you to court, and he'll go, beautiful. He was like, I love going to court. Like the guy, he genuinely loves going to court, and like he loves a little fight, not obviously a big fight, but he loves a little. All right, come on. All
yeah,
right, I'll call you out. I'm gonna get you. This is the law. This is the and a bit of negotiation. And there's people who love that negotiation, right? Like even as a real estate person, okay, a bit of negotiation when I need to. Okay, I get it. I'll do it. It's fun. It can be a little fun, but I wouldn't say I'm like, oh yeah, let me go in and negotiate this for you because I just want to get. But some people are that character, and
yeah,
that's
for
so
sure.
good. That's so good to have in your corner. How good's having that person around? You're like, oh, I got to negotiate this. You ever have that person who's like, no, I'll do it. You got to get this deal. You got to, no, don't do that. You got to call him. I'll call him. I'll call him. My mate, those people are so good to have in your corner. If you can put them back in the cage when you need to, though, that's the thing. That's the thing. So that's a big one, Lucas. Realizing being difficult gets you what you want faster. And then the other option there was D, never. They are a passenger in a vehicle driven by their own ego. That's So that's the other interesting thing was like, you think about when you're being a shithead. Does the concept of other people just not exist
Mm.
in a way?
I guess I'm always curious what the elements are at play when you're like considering something difficult or poor behavior or something like that. I guess what's being violated? Like what are the conditions that are being violated? Is it there's not an element of fairness, or people are being used as tools for someone else's agenda? I mean, we all do that to a certain extent, but it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
what's the, yeah, yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, This is why I always use the words for this inclusive versus extractive, which I'll explain. And I think that's getting at what you're getting at, and we're planning to go there anyway.
Well, I guess, yeah, sorry, before, it's
Yeah,
like qualifying what makes some behavior difficult, because like we were saying earlier, it's kind of like you can find so many things difficult depending on what's being violated against yourself. For example, like it could just be it's putting you out, but that might actually be the best thing for you in that situation and you don't realize
yeah,
it. Or like
it's hard.
there's but yeah, I'm curious, like what is actually
Yeah, that's
being
hard.
what's being
I flip
violated.
I flip flop on that constantly.
Hmm.
Um, Mainly with work and mainly with small things that seem grayer because there's obvious things, right? Like someone calls you swearing about one tiny thing you missed is obviously extreme, so it's obvious. But like the little things, like, oh, I'm not doing this today for this reason, and I go, oh, well, you should be doing that anyway. Why are you calling me to do this? So not being specific, I'm just talking about anything that's like feels small, but you get annoyed. And I think it's hard to know, am I reacting proportionately
Hmm.
to the situation or reverse, which is the thing what you were asking. And correct me, by the way, if I'm going away from your question. Um, is the way this person's reacting proportionate to the situation?
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think because I don't think you can solve that when it's grey. So when it's obvious, like going overboard, screaming just to get an appointment sooner or something like that, when there's no high stakes, well, obviously that's too extreme. But
Yeah.
but being a little short with someone on the phone at the reception to get your way, if you don't need to, the if you don't need to is an interesting thing because you said we always have to push or whatever at some point, but there's some very polite ways of pushing
Yeah. I think
that are very effective.
I
And
think
so
if
the
you
do you need
sorry.
to is very interesting. No, keep going.
Yeah, I think I looked at it. I guess you can. Sales is a good lens to look at it through because you can sort of see, like, if you're a salesperson, are you, there's an element of like selling, trying to persuade and like get your point across and stuff like that. But it's like, at what point does it turn into you're manipulating someone to make a decision that they might not need to make? Or are you hiding certain information to make the decision making process a little smoother? Or like those kind of things are pretty much not like, I guess you're not doing the right thing by the other person in a
Mm,
sense. And you can still like, versus just laying out, like having a conversation to someone, finding out what their requirements are, laying out how you can solve that problem with product XYZ. And there's no perfect, there's no scenario where that like is 100% perfect, but
mm,
I guess it's like the the negative side is more thinking about how can I like just get what I want at the cost of the other person. And I feel like people that operate in that mode most of the time cause a lot of issues in their relationships and ultimately to people they deal with, if that makes sense.
of course, it makes sense. That's what I think of as extractive
Yeah,
behavior.
okay. Yeah.
That's what I mean by it. As you were saying that, I was thinking of. I just started reading the Shawshank Redemption, like the book.
Mm,
Obviously, it's a famous movie, but obviously, you might not know it's a Stephen King book, right?
yeah.
And because as you were saying that, I was thinking about, it's interesting how much it depends on what you're selling, how much you do that. Because if something's got things you need to hide to sell it or not, some things are not that, you know, like if I'm selling someone a book, it's such low stakes for them. It's not going to hurt them. It's not going to, it's not like selling them a dodgy car or something like that. And why I thought of the Shawshank Redemption is because the bit I was up to last night before I pinned it, and I pinned it because like, oh, I want to stop on that note. It's a good note. he's talking about the two guys are obviously in the prison, and they're talking about one of them's talking about some people are saints; they never get their hands dirty. You know, they live their whole lives like that. They won't sully their hands for anything. You know what I mean? And it's a beautiful line. You know, the pigeons shit on their shoulders. They built statues and the pigeons shit on their shoulders, but that's just how they are. And then other people are, you know, well, this is what I've got to do. And other people are just locked in that. You know, this is what I've got to do. And I'm in the muck and I'll get my hands dirty and I'll do, and this is the way the world is. So you go, so there's that other extreme. They're like, well, I didn't make this world, but I'm in it. I'm going to shovel the shit, you know? And they're talking about it because there's like a real ethical dilemma about how this guy's getting on in the prison and what he's doing because it's at the expense of some people to benefit. He's working in the library, and so he's doing some things to help these guys commit crimes because he's like a banking guy, so he can help them like embezzle their money and stuff like that. But also he's getting something for it, which is to get the library going, which is the library is helping other prisoners, you know, pass their high school level equivalency exams and stuff like that. So he's saying, but then there's other people who know that there's a middle, you know, and we basically walk in the middle uh, and do the best we can. And I thought it was fascinating because I think I'm about halfway through. It's not the longest book at all. It's very short. And I got to that point reading it last night, and I thought, oh, I think this is what this is about. Um, and it's about like it's entirely basically what I mean is it's entirely situational and relative. And so that's why the factors are interesting. So you grew up like this, you had parents like that, you had events like this happen to you, you had this sort of bad luck and this sort of good luck. You got this genetic predisposition maybe to this sort of anger or not, I don't know. Um, you know, you got this much control of your behavior, you're put in this situation. What's the best you can do? And you can't create a perfect you very often can't create a perfect situation that's doing the best for everyone, but what's the best you can do? And then what's your understanding of what the best is? This is why someone who genuinely believes that I've got to look out for me, I've got to look out for me, um, and it's a dogfight. I'm in a dogfight. Like I don't feel like I'm in a dogfight, right? Luckily, I might have born somewhere else, you know, in some other time. It doesn't feel like a dogfight. It feels very like it can be very mutually uh, dependent, not dependent. Just you know, we can mutually support each other in the environment I live in. So I feel that way. But if you genuinely feel like it's a dogfight, people are out to get you. People are out to talk about you and gossip about you behind your back. Then maybe obviously maybe it feels like the right thing to do is to just go and get mine. I'm sure that's how it would feel. And when I am like that in the small doses, I think that's how I feel. I thought it was great. I thought it was such a good thing in that book because that's, you know, it's set in a prison. Prisons, obviously, everyone's done something or not. And some people are falsely accused, which is, you know, obviously that's what's happening in that story. And and then you got some things you can get away with, some things you can't. You know, the guards can't police everything because they got to give the prisoners some concessions, and then there's bribes, and then you know the crime comes into the actual prison because you just can't. It's just so hard to avoid it, and then the people who work there get involved in the crime because it's all around them. They're not getting paid that much. It's a fascinating little like place to test that idea. And so I didn't think we'd go there today. The book's just over there, but that's kind of interesting with the selling thing. And when you're talking about the selling thing, I think, wow, it does depend. So it's funny how often it comes back to this. It does depend how seriously you think about what you are and what you do. Because if you take yourself that seriously, or it's that serious that you need to do wherever the selling helps you go, um, if you're trying to climb or whatever it is, then the more seriously you take it, then the more likely you are to justify crap. But the less seriously you take it, and it's like, this is just something I have to do, this is not the be all and end all, then I think probably the less likely you are to want to justify crap. And the worse you'll feel about justifying crap once you realize it or reflect on it later. And the more likely you are to reflect on it later and see it. And then probably the less you're going to want to do it. I've spoken a lot. Are you on mute, by the way?
I am.
Oh, I thought there was a problem.
No. I'm on mute just in case more planes are
No,
flying over.
I thought you were on mute for. Oh, you worry about planes. No, don't worry about planes.
Oh, it's all good.
This is an amateur podcast.
No, it's very professional. How long have you been doing this now?
Was this small talk?
5 years experience under your belt. No more.
Oh, right. Well, 2020 it started, but
oh yeah,
but hasn't been 6 continuous years, obviously, especially not the last half of that. But yeah, still stuff to talk about.
I think you want everyone wants to think that they're objective and operating in best interests of other people and themselves. But yeah, that's not the reality. But I think as long as you can reflect and look back and be like, oh, I probably did that incorrectly, or oh, I think I was a bit of a jerk in that circumstance, or I think I can probably shouldn't be like that in this circumstance, and that sort of that reflection probably helps the most. Or I think it's hard to reflect like that and just realize that you are being a bit full on, or you're actually the other person is definitely justified over what you thought. Um, but yeah, that process probably leads you in a better direction. And I feel like some people, the ability to reflect like that is not there sometimes.
I was thinking about that as you were saying that. I was thinking about people I know, especially when it comes to business, who you can just see that mentality starts, and it's not like it's their whole personality.
Mm.
It's like, people who are their friends and they're interacting with them as their friends, then it's just like could be the most lovely person, loyal to a fault. And then it's so funny how you can just flick a switch, go to a different situation, and that this would be considered overthinking. This would be considered major overthinking. Like what have you waffled 40 minutes talking about? You're talking about there's not that much to consider. You're not selling snake oil. You're not abusing people. These are just the bumps and bruises of the Dodgem car experience that we're in. But I retain the right to see it differently. I think you do too. Because I'm not in a situation where it's a dogfight. So how bizarre to act like it's a dogfight in a situation where it's not a dogfight.
I think the dogfight mentality, you're just going to find yourself in situations where you're having a dogfight.
That's like so true.
If that's your mode,
you see some guy walking down the street with boxing gloves on like that, and he's looking at you like that. Well, what's your reaction? And so it's so easy to create what you're anticipating.
But that mode comes from a place of like it's like you said, extractive, because you're like, how can I get one over that person? How can I win? Versus like some of the, like in the businesses I've worked for, like a lot of the partnerships are like suppliers or long-term customers. It's really about how you can support each other over the long term. As soon as the relationship turns to Like, how can I get one? Like,
How
how
can I
can I
get
get
one of
a
them?
get an advantage?
Yep.
And you then you're not operating in the best interest of the relationship. And then once that's revealed, the relationship is tarnished for obvious reasons.
Yep.
Because yeah, and I feel like people operating in that mode long term over a long enough time scale, it just doesn't go well.
No. And this is something I always see in negotiation in real estate. Um, Negotiation is so interesting for this to test mindsets because some people's attitude when they're negotiating, obviously for something significant, is maximize, maximize
Yeah,
our end. And it's not that they're that one dimensional about it that they don't understand the other person, the other side, sorry, needs to feel I've got thing, right? But it's all just budgeted. That's all just budgeted into the maximize drive. And so let's give you an example. Let's say I'm selling a home and I want 1.1 and someone's offering, 1.05, let's say. And they have a story why it's the most they can afford, or they don't think it's worth more than that, or whatever their reason. Now, depending on my situation, if I don't care, I just want to sell, I want to move somewhere else, I'm not counting every dollar. See, 50 grand's a lot of money. Is it 50 grand the difference?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I think so.
That would have been embarrassing. 50 grand's a lot of money until it isn't. Like, at the end of the day, if you're getting what you mainly want and need, then it can become academic. Now, in the world of negotiation, you're selling a home. Selling a home is not a charitable act, right? It's like, well, I've got all this value here. I need to extract this value to go over here. And the leftovers I'd rather save for my family, not give to Joe Blow. So you are still advocating for self, right? You're not
Yeah,
Mother Teresa there going, I have a house, I'm going to sell it for half price and help some random family out. I don't know, that probably won't appreciate it anyway. It's just not the way it functions. So you are still advocating for your side. But it's so funny that you get to a point where, well, who cares? if you are not attached to like, no, it's I think it's worth that. I need to get the best deal. Now it's a bind because as a real estate agent, I go to the client, well, no, I think we can get more. Let's just wait and see another offer. But let's not be stupid about. Now, in other complex negotiations, better example is when you're renting something and it's like a commercial lease, especially because it's more complicated. It's a long-term relationship, not a one-off transaction where both parties go their separate ways after a small interaction, right? When it's a long-term thing, that changes the whole dynamic completely. And that's where I really don't love the trying to get one over on them attitude, because over the long term, it does tend to catch up with you. And
for sure.
I've seen that attitude so many times of the maximize, and then they assume that they're bluffing when they say, "Oh, we it's not viable for us at this." It's like, oh, that's bluffing. And the problem is, they could be bluffing, but it depends on your attitude, because at some point you go, all right, well, how much do we really need? How much are we happy with? Even if it's not the fullest utilization of the market, right? You start to look at something like the market because you're like, am I getting gypped here? So it's more about the feeling of, yeah, man, if the market changed, it's still the same amount of money. If that house I'm trying to sell you is worth one, and I manage selling it for 1.05, then, it's still, I'm ahead. So, but it's still the same amount of money. So the amount hasn't changed. Negotiation's interesting, and it brings in a lot of prisoner dilemma stuff, because the interesting thing about prisoner's dilemma stuff, or game theory, probably better to say game theory, because you're talking about anticipating how everyone else around you is going to react. And so if you're in an environment where everyone's acting like a shark, you're guarded because you're anticipating, say, a prison, right? Or whatever, like, I don't know, a good example where you're expecting people aren't trustworthy. Like if I go to the market somewhere, in like an Asian country or something like that, and they tell me the watch is worth $15, well, my assumption is I can get it for less because I know that bartering is a thing there, and it's all
Mm.
fake. I go to a shop down the road here, and a watch is $150. There's no barter. Like
Yeah.
but I'm not expecting that they've stupidly marked it up from what I can get it for elsewhere. So my default is trust. Other environments, your default cynicism. So when you're in an extractive environment, you're expecting everyone else to be extractive. It puts you on guard. You can get really caught out being the inclusive guy. And I think, again, we're not history buffs, you or I, but that's the story that's told about poor, who was it, Neville Chamberlain or whatever, about Hitler and the whole appeasement thing. So I just want, what was it? I just want Poland. Now I just want Austria. Or now I just want Czech Republic. Or now I just want Poland. It's like, all right, mate, fool me once. All right, fool me twice. No. Okay, no, you can't fool me 3 times. So, like, if if the majority of people are sharks, then the shark-like attitude is needed a bit, to some extent. But when everyone's being chill and there's one shark, the shark is obviously looking like an idiot, but the shark is feeding until everyone catches on. And that's the interesting thing about inclusive versus extractive mindsets. So I want to define that a bit more because this is what I see so heavy in all this. And I was telling you the story about um, my grandmother going to hospital not long ago, right? And and my mum calls me to go and look after her because she's away. My mum's away, and so I go. I take my grandmother. You know, she's got to go to the hospital, and then I have, I'm just that's too complicated. I'm not going to even go into that. I'm going to give you a better example. Um, it was funny. It was funny. There's this book called Why Nations Fail, and it was talking about a lot of like the big empires or political parties and things like that. So everything from dictators in Africa to olden like kind of Genghis Khan and I think Alexander the Great, and massive book, like really fascinating. It was recommended, I think, in Poor Charlie's Almanac. That's how I came across it. It's like a beast. And I was reading it as massive thing. I thought, you know what my takeaway is? Extractive, where the people were, pawns basically, and it was just about power at the top, and they were just, basically mining everything. Metaphorically, I mean, like everyone's just a little pawn. Like they don't really have rights, or they're picking on a particular group, when it's racial or ethnic and all that, when there's genocides, all those sort of things, like the terrible things, when they screw the economy up. The extractive was like short term gain and then collapse. Whereas it looked like the more inclusive, we're like, no, there's enough for everyone. Like we can balance everyone's needs to some extent. Obviously, it's never perfect, but there's better and worse. And so people have that attitude. That just seems to last longer. On the micro, I've always been fascinated by it in the working business world. Even on my very like simple, basic, everyday real estate, property management, building management experiences, like you deal with a tradie, let's say, a contractor, and you never understand what they do, right? Like I sent you an AC guy recently who's a saint. right? He emanates it. He doesn't have to prove it to you. He just, obviously, a recommendation obviously carries weight, and you just feel it when you talk to Pierre. Uh, and we've made it a bloody mission to find those people. Whereas you get some, tradies who's like, it feels, yeah, you need to replace it's the old mechanic bit, right? Like, how do we know what they're saying is something that actually needs to be replaced? And even though you don't know the technicalities, you will often get a feeling. Like, I'm sure he's kind of giving me a bit of what I need, but I feel like there's a bit of extra in here for them. And they're taking advantage of the situation. And again, it's like the confirmation bias of the people who, realize being difficult gets them what they want faster. It definitely gets you a win in the short term. Right? I had it once when I had a fire at a building. Friday night, it's emergency, and my normal plumber's away. So I've got to find one from Google. And the first guy's like, I charge $280 call out and this much per hour. So I go, all right. I go the second guy because I'm like, I've got to get someone out here. It's a fire, all the pipes are melted and shit's literally falling on the floor of the basement because all the sewage is melted. So I'm like, I got to get someone out here ASAP, but I also don't want to be scalped. Second guy says 180 call out and then this much per hour. It's like much less. So I go, all right, you come out, please, because I don't have time to investigate further. This is Friday night, like at 7 o'clock or something, PM. And then the first guy calls me back, going, oh, I didn't hear back from you, did you need me? And I'm like, no, I found someone else cheaper. Thanks. And he goes, oh, shit you not. He goes, can you tell me what they were charging you? I go, mate, I've got a building that's like I've got a fire. People don't have a home, and I've got to manage this so they can get back into their home straight away. It's Friday night. I'm out here. I don't have time to help you suss out your competition. Goodbye. And I hung up on him. That's extractive. And they're just
100%.
they're
Yeah.
just taking every pound of flesh along the way, and it's all. But they'll keep getting business because they're mining in the short-term market. They're fishing for emergency business. Hey, there are some really good ethical people that respond to emergency call-out work as their core business. I'm not putting all those people in the same bucket. That was one example. Because it is worth more, right?
It's kind of a
for someone to
perfect
come out
example.
quicker. It's the perfect example. Whereas, mate, I've got trades who, my normal plumber, we just, like, I had to tell my team, because it's my family's property, not for the other clients, I had to tell him, you don't need to ask him to quote for this or that. You're going to annoy him. He helps us out. He does everything really well. He doesn't charge. He's been with my family for 35 years working for us, and we have trust. So he feels like a part of the team. Like, we always believe he has our best interests at heart. We trust him. We go to him for advice. We're not trying to question his. It's the opposite, right?
Yeah.
So you got
exactly.
two plumbers, but you got the opposite different experience, and that applies to everyone we deal with. And so what I do with my team is we are always just weeding out the people we need for stuff, because you need someone for everything, right? Lifts. I need someone for garage doors. I need someone for electrical, right? I'm not going to bore you. I know this is the simplest, most mundane example, but we need someone for everything. So what we want people like the plumber. We want people like the AC guy I sent you, who they feel like they're a part of the team. What we don't want is someone who feels like an outsider, who we don't trust, who is taking us for a ride. And often what they'll do is they're minimizing what they actually have to deliver, and they're maximizing what they pull out of you. So quality of work is either just to a threshold of what's required, it's never above and beyond, or they even try to compromise on that. So that's like the people put cheap materials in their products and all that while charging the same price, or in the food or whatever it is. And so basically all we're always trying to do is cycle out the extractive ones, because it's harder to deal with them. And when the chips are down, they're not really there for you. And we're trying to cycle in the inclusive ones. But what's fascinating is I engage with the extractive ones and I think, why are you this way? Like, it's so clear, even if you've been used to doing things another way, it seems so clear to me that there is a much better way that feels nicer. Even if you don't make, maybe you don't make as much money or you feel you won't make as much money, and maybe that's all it's all about. But it feels nicer at the very least. And but they are just
I'd
on this
still challenge that because, like, as in, you got a much, well, the way I see it is you've got a much better chance of having a successful long term.
yeah. But
Um,
I'll give you an
yeah,
example. You are right, and I agree. Obviously, I'm saying it feels like, because
yeah.
I've got one guy who he does this one thing we need for lifts. So we have someone who looks after our lifts who's amazing. But then you got to sign off every year for a fight. So this is technical, right? He's just got this one little job. And so he's done it every year because we've needed him to, and he's the cheapest option because it's just a compliance thing. But he always asks for more work every year when he does this one thing. It's an annual thing. And we just don't have more to give him because there's only one lift where we need this compliance thing for, right? And he still charges heaps. And I think he's grown frustrated from not getting the more work. So you can see from his perspective, I'm trying to be relationship, but no,
You're saying he's doing it so that he can get more work, not because it's the right thing to do.
no, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying he 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 he's not doing anything wrong technically at all. Zero, nothing technically wrong. But the expectation and the feeling of entitlement has frustrated him to the point where now I noticed in the last interaction we had with him, we're not going to use this guy anymore. We're going to pay more for someone else. We already have, right? Because it's easier. Because this guy held us to ransom to come back and fix something. So
Seriously?
yeah, like a little bit. So I mean, the attitude and the entitlement of that core belief inside, because our situations test us, right? And they figure out what we're actually made of and what our actual deepest insecurities and weaknesses are. So someone like the guy I gave you for the AC, if I only given him this one job a year, I don't like, say for you, you'd only have one thing for him to do, right? He's not going to get what he gets out of me, which is real estate work, all this work, massive replacements, massive systems, work up the coast, work down. He's not going to get that from you. But he's still going to treat you exactly the same way he treats me. Partly because it's an extension of me and our relationship, but partly just because that's who he is. He's just so pure a person. And the ACO guy I gave you, he doesn't need to work really, but he does a lot of. He came to see you on a Saturday, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He doesn't have to do that.
He's been
He's
back
not.
as well when he didn't
Yeah,
have to.
but he's not in a position where he has to. He's actually been. I thought he was trying to hand the business over to his son. For
Yeah,
him,
he.
it's a privilege for him also to help.
Yeah,
And then the money's just all right.
yeah.
And like anyone else, we still want all right. Well, all things considered, I'll take as much money as I can get. All the other stuff still in place. But he lives in the world of the interaction and the beautiful interaction. You know what I mean?
Well,
So many
I
of
can
us are
give you an
also living in
example.
the heads. Yeah, go.
Or like for example, we wanted to get the aircon on the outside and install a different system,
Yep,
but he kind of refused to do that because you wouldn't actually have warranty,
yep,
um, and it would cause issues down the track, even if that was 10 years or
yep,
so. But you see on the other side of the building, there's heaps of people that have done that would have issues if it ever needed to be repaired because
yep.
you'd need a scissor lift and it would be so
Yeah.
expensive to it's not I don't think you're meant to put it where you can't get to it
Yep,
essentially.
yep,
So that's an example of so he went with an option to actually go um do it a different way, but it's actually it would be a lot more work, handiwork, because you got to take out a window and like you got to do a bit
Mm.
more of craft work
So
than
he didn't take the easy solution, you say?
no, no, and he like you said he doesn't need to like he could have just declined doing that job, which we actually had three other people decline doing the. They were like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
that's more of a handyman's work. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
want to
See, it's all little stuff. This is what I mean. This is
yeah,
it's beautiful to observe this in the little subtle instances, not the big obvious scams. Look at the
yeah.
little things. Like, no, it's sorry, it's not, and that's fine. They're
But
not
he's
doing
like,
anything wrong.
when you move, don't worry, I'll get beautiful split system. We'll do it.
See,
But you
there's
can
no.
tell he takes pride in it as well, and
He
like
takes pride,
he's trying to do the right thing based
right?
on the circumstance.
Yeah. Now, in the extractive world, and extractive is not the most toxic of the toxic. Saying, I'm talking about like the law. Like I'm limited by the law. That's my limit. Like what I need to do, or very basic moral code. There's nothing that instructs, Pierre, who I sent you to be the way he is. There's no law. He's not looking for bare minimum, uh, or to do the least he needs to. He's looking to give, and that just comes from a different place. That just comes from, oh, what a nice feeling to give, you know, and you can build a business both ways, and you can build a career both ways. And maybe some environments one way won't work, right? Maybe some environments the inclusive thing has a very low ceiling. I don't know, but the inclusive way, I think, um, if you're in that place, your needs are less, because I think you're so fed in another way, and you just have much less fights and conflicts. And but that's interesting. How do you deal with someone who, it's so hard to deal with? It's just so draining.
Really depends on degree and maybe just avoid.
Well, yeah, yeah. I definitely want to avoid. I tell you, I weed them out. Like we just have a list of people we use for all the different things that can
Mm.
go wrong. Thank God, properties, man. Jeez, how many things can go wrong?
Yeah,
And
that's
the
a
goal,
scary business because you think about how much of a trust element you need to have. Like, for example, even doing things on our building with like you get quotes, and one might be, you know,
yeah.
just as an example, $100,000. One might be
Oh,
60, and you don't know. You just at the mercy of
yep,
these people because they're
yep.
and this is why people have a I guess they got a duty of care, or like that finding people that are ethical is so important, like is so important because you have to trust them. You'd like to think that you understand what they're putting forward, but you don't really, like you have no idea.
No, you never will.
And it's like that's why finding someone that you can trust is so valuable, which is obviously what you've done and your family's done with all the
Yeah, like I think
contractors that you work with.
yeah, my auntie gets a lot of credit for that. She did a lot of that to start with. That changes the job, man. That changes the job. We've gotten Google reviews from our trades. They're not even employed by us. The poor trades missed out on the Google review. Our business got the Daniel was so great. He took his shoes off. I got a Google review from, and so I look at them as part of the team,
They are this. They're so
and
important.
that's as inclusive as it gets, right? So to be a team in the not in the what's the word I'm looking for? Not technically part of a team, not legally. I'm saying, not with all the entitlements and all that, but the team in the actual sense of like we are on the same side, the spiritual sense, and that's the funniest thing. Um, I want to come back to what you said. So I think that makes sense, right? The inclusive extractive thing.
It's a good way to frame it.
I'm always looking at it, and it's not. No one's purely one way or the other, right? Like again, in a negotiation, I'm not lying. I'm not bending over for you, right? I'm polite, but not that polite. But it's an energy, and
You don't need to be in a lot of. It's more like
that's what I mean.
trying
You
to
don't have
find
to
like
be.
a fair and reasonable point.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's clear, and that you tend to find. But what I think my takeaway from that bit is that you tend to find people who are coming more from one than the other. You don't find many people who are purely one or the other, but you tend to find people who are mainly emanating one energy, and it's a feeling. It's not a list of did they do this or they're extractive, but it's just like this guy's on my side. So that's that bit. I think that's important and that's good. I want to come back to what you said, and if this is the last point, great. Um, people genetically that way?
It's interesting.
Yeah. Now you asked this when we had the offline
I think I'm
unintended coffee chat.
Like,
I
the
want you to
I
go
guess
into what you were asking. Yep.
Or I guess the context is.
Sorry.
And
Yep.
that's all good.
Above
It's
the
more observing, like, for example, if you see a situation a certain way and you can see a pattern over time that, like, over, just say a really long period of time.
Yep.
And it's like, there hasn't been a single point of, even say like a massive event occurred and like it was very destructive and it caused a lot of pain to the
Yeah.
individual and people around,
Yeah.
but
An
no
incident.
fundamental
Yeah.
an incident, call it.
Yep. Yep.
But no fundamental change happened or no change in ongoing behavior. So it's like,
Yep. So
what is that?
someone's an aggressor in this situation. We're speaking abstractly.
Yeah, to say someone's like someone's operated in that mode you were talking about,
like a ripping off or a
yeah,
Yep,
and it's gotten
yep.
them into a certain amount of trouble.
Yep.
But then after a big event, the same sort of behavior persists.
Yep.
That raises the question, like, can you change that?
So is that what the genetic thing? See,
Well, but
I
you
don't.
could have two people that are in the
What
same.
was the word you're looking for? Nature.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is
Nature.
it in someone's nature?
It's yeah. I think.
Well, you got two things. You got can you change, and you've got is it innate? Is it innate or learned?
It seems that.
Or how innate is it and how learned is it? Nature, which is always nature versus nurture debate.
It's an interesting question.
Is that what you're?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And
like,
what's your thought? What's your first?
I would say in extreme
thoughts?
cases, like in small percentage of cases, it looks like it's nature. Like, as in you're born with a certain predisposition to a certain, not purely obviously because you would be shaped in childhood and those sorts of things, but I mean you could probably find cases where two people were in the same family, had very similar experiences but turned out completely differently.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know, but
It's fascinating.
I think it's interesting.
It's fascinating. I remember what I said to you when we were talking about this the other time. Is that we feel like we're goodish people. That's just our subjective interpretation. And so you feel like, all right. And, it's been nice. I've been complimented before. And I'm sure you have. And maybe from me. If I haven't, Luke, you're a lovely guy. There you go. Maybe
Joe, you're a lovely guy as well.
Oh no, Joe. Oh, thank you. But
I know we both have our difficult
we have our shortcomings,
characteristics, but
well, we're on the soccer field and off the soccer field. Yeah, challenges. But it's funny when you hear people praise and sometimes they'll deflect. And part of that's like a inbuilt, socially learned, I think, humility reflex to not take on, praise in a way that looks arrogant. So I think it's a social politeness thing. But I also think part of it is you reflect on what are the causes that make me this way. What was the cause of my success in this domain? And if someone praises your character, Sometimes I think in my head and I deflect to, say, my parents. Because I'm like, oh, sorry. I hate mic bumps.
It's all good.
If I had different parents, what would I be like? And if the choices my parents made around me, what would I be like? And then I wonder, even if I am a lovely person or whatever, someone says I am, how responsible am I for that? And I'm in some part responsible to some extent because I've made choices. But even, I think, obviously, my choices are influenced by the other factors too, though. It's like Harry Potter versus Voldemort in the books. Like, both orphans, both half-blood, both go to the same school, but one's like very inclusive. One's the literary embodiment of extractive. One's just take. One's mainly give. And that's the beautiful question about nature in the world. And I think about the shitheads I know. I think about the shitheads in my family. I was going to tell that story. It's a bit dog to tell it about my auntie before. But, this thing with my grandmother. And I'm looking after my grandmother all day on this occasion. And she's texting throughout the day to see if, everything's all good. I'm like, yeah, I'll meet you. Taking her home now. I'll meet you there. And then she's not there. She's just going to meet me there and she's not there. I'm like, all right, I'll leave my grandmother with it. Staples in her head, home alone now, because she was at work. And then apparently she came later so she could take her to church so everyone could see and think that she was looking after her all day. And this is what my poor mum has had to put up with, and that's her sister, So that's what you're talking about, the same family. My mum is not at all like that, as biased as I am. And I think,
But which is why it makes me think, like, what is that? Like,
but that's so I like some part of, like, I wrote one of my stupid articles last year on the Substack. Stop trying to be authentic; it's very inauthentic. I'm like, there's nothing as inauthentic as an inauthentic person trying to be authentic. If you're inauthentic, be inauthentic. That's authentic. So here's the confusing question for you. I think my auntie is being authentic in her inauthenticity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm joking, of course.
No, I know what you mean, though.
I'm joking because it's an unsolvable philosophical
It's like
question to me. Obviously the behavior is wrong. It's very clear. I'm not trying to mince that. I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm not going to get too worked up about it. In the moment, I was like, oh, my mum told me, you know what she did? She took her later to mass. She came just for that, so everyone could see her. And then I for a moment, I was like, oh. For a moment, I was like, oh, Auntie, dirty. Like, why? But then I calmed down. I go, well, I'm not going to get upset about it because who gives a shit? And I'm like, looking after a grandmother was actually a privilege. I don't have my grandmother speaks like English second language. Like, we don't have heart to hearts. You know what I mean? That was like, I don't have much exchange with her. She's a crazy little girl as well. Like, she's also hard to relate to. Like, I have no issues with the relationship, but it's not like that's like now a core memory of my relationship with my grandmother. Yeah. It was actually a nice thing to do. Again, the Pierre thing, but that actually feels good to do, That's nicer than not doing that, It's not really a burden as a one-off. And then what, do you feel like a saint because you looked after your No. You're not like entitled to anything from it. It's just, that's it. Like, that's when it's nice. You just move on. All right? Next experience, please. And I think about my poor aunt is the sort of person who must be so obsessed with what people think. The poor girl. She's got to go perform. She's that motivated. This is what I was laughing to you about. There's less energy and effort. It's not even like not caring. It's more like there's less effort and energy to just not show up. the performance of the coming at the time only when people will be watching is so calculated, and it's got energy and creativity put into it. It's just thought about it.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. You know what I mean? Like these people who do bizarre and difficult things, and we class them as difficult people. Often they're going out of their way. You know what I mean? It's like that's their thing. Like my thing's writing. Your thing is this and running and, learning and network and this and that, whatever. And their thing is the spectacle. Their thing is the spectacle of look at me. And that's their dance. And they were born in some way, shape, or form by a divine creator or by the randomness of nature or something in between. They were clearly made with that dance in mind. And who am I? Who am I? And who are you, Luke, to question the dance they were given? And it's not to condone the behavior. The behavior
I was
is
going to
wrong.
say you can just try not to play a big part.
Seinfeld, you're very bad man. You're very bad man. It's not. It's understanding. True understanding sounds like sometimes giving people no accountability and giving them a pass. I'm not giving them a pass. I've learnt from the interaction. Next time I get a text, I'm not going to answer it. That's the consequence of the extractive behavior, right?
Yep.
The inclusive one, or the one trying to be inclusive, doesn't get put down into the dance. That's the victory. You don't look for revenge. You don't look to get back. Because that's about an emotional win. Well, sometimes you do because it's a bit of fun. But it's really more about the moving on and moving past and transcending it. And then that's looking at it in context. And you think, what is that person going through? What is in their head? They must have constant thoughts around, oh, they're going to think I wasn't looking after my mother. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they're going to think I wasn't looking after my mother. I've got to get him. Like, who cares what anyone thinks? But you've got to go and put on the performance to satisfy. Or there's some other ulterior motive. I wouldn't even know. But man, the last thing I ever want to do these days is be the one trying to convince. Like the situation with the work thing and this guy who does this lift certification. I put no effort or energy into telling him, hey, you could be more like this. I go, thanks. And this is what my auntie does as well. The trades that give us the runaround, we pay them. They're overinflated invoices. We go, thanks, appreciate it, and we just never give them work again.
Yeah.
And then in their heads, they would not have known about the misstep. Because again, there's like, all right, I got what I want. Now I need my next client. There's no understanding that they've missed an opportunity.
Yeah.
And because we're not going to give them, why would we tell them that? I'm not going to go tell someone how to. That's very rude. Imagine I told you how to be. You tell me to.
Yeah, it's not really anyone's responsibility.
Like, you could be a bit more, a bit more this way if you wanted to. You could think about your career this way, Luke. Well, no, buzz off, Joe.
Yeah.
So it's not our responsibility or our place, unless it's very clear. There's a very clear opening. But I just observe. I find myself more and more observing and laughing. It's funny, man. But yeah, they were meant to be that way. And who am I to say that if I was not born in their skin, in their situation, with their early stage experiences, who am I to say I wouldn't be like that? I did not choose the start I got. It was given to me. And so I do think about the Shawshank thing in that scene and talking about, well, if you're in the muck, how are you going to deal with it? I think that's more about the cards you're dealt than being purely good. Or it's like, how, what can you tap into that's good in your life, and where can you get to, and how can you make the best, not settle for, well, I'm this way, so I'm full of shit. But how can you make the real go of it? Come back, Luke, from that wing and defend a bit. We're not giving you a pass just because you're banging the goals. We still challenge you. We still challenge you in the right situation to come back and defend.
As much as I don't like it.
That's. But you said something when we had this offline chat, and you said, so you're talking about something that happened a long time ago, with someone who's giving you a hard time, and they had that more extractive mindset. And I just want to give you credit for this because this was so good. And you talked about how they were it felt like you're being brought into their logic, like their way of looking at things and trying to extract, every pound of flesh out of other people was right. And I resonated with that because I think that's something we all are challenged by when we face these characters, especially when we're really enmeshed with them in some situation, work, relationships, whatever it is. And it starts to, like, their logic starts to, it's funny how logic is contagious sometimes. It's really fascinating. It's like a virus of its own. And to I was fascinated by what you shared when you're recognizing that it starts to feel like their way of doing things is right, but you go, hang on, and you recognize it's not. Because again, I'm so interested in, like, if you're writing a story about morality, that's what you would do. You'd put a character in that situation where no one's telling them what, no one's coming telling them the other opposite, that's not right. You just got one person saying this is right, and that character, and they've got no reason or major trigger or crisis or anything to tell them to resist that, apart from their own internal spirit, conscience, whatever, to hold off and go,
Yeah.
no. It's the ultimate test. So it's a little bit of a compliment to you for your experience there, but it's more a broader reflection, because I think that's the real game we're playing. Like, the main metric is not necessarily, I think, the dollars or the accolades or anything that can be observed easily from the outside. I think the real game feels like a whole bunch of little trials or tests or something. And it's like, which door are you going to choose? Are you going to be like them? Here, they're drawing you in. That's the extractive. It's like, always they're drawing you in to be like them as well. It's fascinating. Like, the whole way their behavior manifests triggers, easily triggers more of that behavior. It's virus-like. Whereas to have your own constitutions and go, sorry, I don't want dessert. I'm good with the pizza. I think that's the game. How well do you feel we've explored
this
topic?
Explored it quite well.
Have you got any loose ends?
No, not really. I think the way you frame it with extractive versus inclusive is a good framing.
I always love it.
It's a good way to think about it, because it's hard to sometimes, it's hard to classify it, but when you really think about it, it's a good way to frame it.
Which is what, I don't know how well it was done. I know this is a bit cute, but this is what I remember I was thinking about a lot when we did that. I did this book with Paul.
Yeah.
And the two different businesses. Like, we've talked about how it's super archetypal and not realistic. How, once they're just a bit more one dimensional. But that's that example of the experiences from real estate, which we all can see is like the difference and the implications. It's a very good topic. Very good topic. So, Luke, will you be going forward inclusive, or are you going to lean more into the extractive? Because you've probably got some leeway.
I think
because you're quite inclusive, so you could probably be a bit more extractive if you wanted to.
I think I will continue to try and be inclusive, but it depends where I want to live in Sydney.
So what you're saying is it's a dogfight.
Yeah.
We're in a dogfight. It's me versus you and everyone else.
Got to get my own.
You got to get our own. This has all been luring me into a false sense of comfort.
No. I'll try and do the right thing.
Do the best you can, mate.
Yeah.
And I will as well. All right.
It's been good. Good chat, Joe.
Thanks as always, my friend. And to anyone listening out there, don't be extractive. and keep opening doors. Bye.